15%, and I feel like let's find other ways of stimulating our economy. I can't afford 17% VAT increase. Where are you on this particular matter? I would love to hear from you. Do send through your voice notes on 061-410-4107. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with, after the headline news.
In the headlines, the Sawa AfriForum says it will be visiting the U.S. soon on what it describes as a mission to salvage the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The number of people killed in mudslides in KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 6. KZN Cooperative Governance MEC Thulasizwe Buthelezi says disaster teams are on the ground assisting affected communities following heavy rains overnight across the province. And researchers in Chile have developed a way of capturing large quantities of water from fog with potential benefits for dry cities across the world. Details at 2.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Hi guys, this is Solomon here. I think what you guys miss or seem to miss is that the budget that would have been presented would have been an ANC government, irrespective of whether or not it was still going to be debated in Parliament. The ANC must not continue to think that it's all about the ANC or it continues to be the sole governing party of South Africa, because it's not. So they were meant to do what they were reminded in the end to do, to present a budget that all GNU, National Government of Unity, parties are happy with. So it doesn't matter whether the budget was still going to be debated. The fact is the ANC, which is part of a GNU, was going to present an ANC budget and not a GNU budget. What happened is exactly the right thing. They must go back, consult with the GNU partners, because South Africans voted for a GNU coalition party government and not a one-party government, and then come and present to South Africans something that is a consensus by GNU parties, and then debate that in Parliament.
All right, we hear your perspective on that, but I think the question at hand is not whether or not it was an ANC budget or a GNU budget. It's specific to the proposed 2% VAT increase. Do you think that South African households, we the individuals, you and me as you listen, are able to really take on another additional 2% to our household VAT costs, our household VAT rate? That is the question at hand. We want to know from you, do you think increasing the VAT from 15% to 17% is a good idea? Because every cent counts at the end of the day when we're looking at the household food grocery basket. When we're looking at the goods that we, consume and the goods that we purchase, they are all VAT rated. So every couple of cents and rands ultimately ends up to 100 more rands than you anticipated to spend, or a couple thousand more rands than you anticipated to spend. Are you willing basically to pay more for the things that you buy right now? 061-410-4107 is the WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number to call, because that's the crux of the matter. For at least for me, Dr. Ndlovu, we can debate the sort of the fundamentals around why the VAT increase may or may not be a good idea, but at the end of the day, it's about whether or not South Africans can afford to take on this blow at the moment.
Sure, Bridget, and I do agree with the listener in principle that the budget must be a GNU budget, but I think that it's something that should have been resolved by the parties prior to the time that the budget speech was going to be presented. Because if you think about the spending that accompanies the budget speech event, you've got traveling, you've got accommodation, you've got other logistics. One would perhaps have thought that that is something that they would have taken up prior to the day of the budget speech. But nonetheless, just coming back to your question, I like what you said before we went to the adverts, is that when the rate was changed from 14% to 15%, we were disgruntled. But later on, we got used to it and we lived our lives, And I think this is the same thing, that if the parliament goes ahead and approves the 17% VAT rate, we are going to be disgruntled, and few months later, we are going to get used to it. But I think it's important as citizens that we start to hold our government to account. And again, I'm not just going to focus on the government here. I'm also even going to talk to the taxpayers from the revenue side. Now, when you're looking at governments, just the previous year, I think it was in 2024, the irregular expenditure almost doubled, right? And when you look at the amount, I think it was close to 50 billion. That is almost going to be equivalent to the additional tax that is going to be raised from the VAT, from the VAT adjustment if it is successful. But that then says that we also need to put effort in ensuring that when we are receiving the monies from the taxpayers, we use it accordingly. We are diligent on how we use the money. But again, when you look at the tax revenue side, looking at the taxpayer side, when you look at the personal income taxes, for example, it's a few percentage of individuals that contribute the most as far as personal income tax is concerned. And that is understandable because of the progressive nature of personal income taxes. But however, just looking at all the taxes overall, we need to focus on tax enforcement as well. We need to be able to close the gap. And for us to be able to close the gap, we need to put resources into SARS and ensure that there are more resources to enforce. Because when you enforce, you are going to get the money, and therefore the need to constantly want to increase taxes will be less. So it's both ways.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting. And I guess this conversation will continue to be had from various angles, right? And at the crux of the matter of concern, at least for most South Africans, is the affordability perspective of it, because the added VAT costs on food items, for instance, will have a knock-on effect. Fewer purchases on nutritionally dense foods, perhaps. And we got to start thinking about it from these sort of various dimensions. How does this affect even those zero-rated food items? You can have more zero-rated food items, but are people actually able to even afford to buy bigger baskets or not?
Yes, absolutely. When you're looking at the zero-rated basket, obviously it was extended, but at the same time, there's few items that are there as well. So the cost of living, nonetheless, they will still be impacted, because when you look at the food basket, you don't have clothes in there, you don't have toiletries in there. So there's a lot of things that are not in the zero-rated basket. And yes, we will feel the increase. But also maybe another way to look at it is that even from a small business perspective, because when you look at there's a lot of employment that comes from small businesses. And when you look at small businesses, they will feel the pinch of the 2%, because when you run a small businesses, it's a value-added tax, so you're paying tax on the value-added. But it's not always possible that all your expenses have input tax in them. So you're going to see small businesses now also carrying the burden of the tax. And again, when you look at it, just because the VAT rate increased by 2% does not mean that you're going to be able to adjust your prices by 2%. Some of these small businesses will have to absorb that 2%, because in that market, price is king. You can't just increase your prices lightly. So you look at it, you're saying, yes, it's going to affect the men on the street, everyone. But again, you look at it from employment sustainability as well, from small business sustainability as well. It is going to be a challenge there as well.
Yeah. Ultimately, as we say goodbye, Dr. Ndlovu, in a minute or less, bottom line, who suffers the most by this 2% increase?
We all suffer, but I think the poor, they are going to be the most affected.
Yeah. Dr. Ndlovu, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. And Dr. Ndlovu is the UNISA Senior Lecturer for the Department of Taxation. It's just gone 20 to 2 o'clock on The Full Circle. Myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM, leading the conversation.
During Ford Blue Sky offers, you can get a new Ford Territory Ambiente from just $6,199 per month, including our optional service plan. Only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime list 5.25%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Borussia Dortmund and FC Union Berlin are both searching for a decent position in the top half. They have a big battle for maximum points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Dortmund FC versus FC Union Berlin on Saturday, 22 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
We are switching pace just a little bit now, and we've got a quick catch-up with, Kuli China. You know, I almost said AKA Kuli China because I was trying to think and decide in my mind whether I'm going with your government name first, Kulani Murule, or I'm going with, obviously, your stage moniker first, Kuli China. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Fabulous.
You can just call me Kuli.
I mean, yeah,
I'm okay with that.
We could just call you Kuli because at this point in time, you've evolved into a one-name brand. I think when we say Kuli, everyone knows exactly who we're talking about. Let's talk about maybe just let's touch on your life journey in music. You know, from a young rapper from Mufftown doing your thing, starting out Mufftown Heights in 2009, to Kuli Chana now, who's a grown man, a father, a husband, and an ever-evolving businessman. Quite the journey.
Quite a journey, right? What a time. We came to Joburg in the early 2000s, as young men from Mafikeng, small town in the northwest, going against the grain, guns blazing, rapping Kasetswana in a time when, it wasn't cool. Zola was the biggest thing out. Zulu as a language was dominating the airwaves. And we made it cool. We made it, we stuck to our guns and, we stayed true to our authenticity. And this was shortly after we met a guy by the name of Jabulani Zambo, Double HP.
Yeah.
Who said, I will take the lead. You guys will come check up at my place in Joburg. And you'll move down here and we'll move together. We started touring with him. And eventually we dropped our first album with my band, Morafi, in 2005. And then we move on to 2006. Second album, Bums. The guys say, you got to go solo. I go solo. And that was, the time where I found my own voice and I went against my biggest fear, which was just to stand alone, to stand out. Back then I was a bit, very shy, as a bit, and yeah, man. And Motoko Originator was the first album.
Yeah.
And And today, sometimes it just feels like a blur when I look back. I've won multiple awards. First rapper to win the best album award at the Summers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some international awards, and I've done some great brand collaborations. But the one I'm mostly proud of was creating Mufftown Heights, which is a stage and a platform where we broke a lot of careers. AKA's been on that stage, Casper's been on that stage, A-Reese, and we also celebrated the legacy artists. Heather's been on that stage, TKZ's been, Paula Tones has been on that stage, Burna Boy, and here I am again just living out my purpose, rolling out a campaign called Original Feeds Original with KFC, where I'm shining a light on the new generation of music, which is Blackie and 25K.
Yeah.
I'm really amped about that.
Why is it so important for you to sort of, center yourself as a conduit of ensuring that the next generation of musicians, the next generations of creators get an opportunity, they get a foot in the door, they get, to be on stages and for their talents to be seen and heard?
It was instilled in me by Jabulani Zambo, Double HP, by Prof Sobukwe of Buffy File. I was hip-hop calls, the term is being put on.
Yeah.
I was put on. And it felt deliberate, it felt intentional, how Jasper led me, and and by, let's take the words of Ricky Rick, we don't die, we multiply, and this is how you evolve, and this is how I also continue to be a student and Ganya, this is how I stay current, this is how I stay culturally relevant, and this is how you grow. I've seen my peers who have been in the industry for long and get to a certain stage and they just feel like, I'm not gonna mix with some young dudes, and nobody's gonna tell me nothing. I've got all this experience, and this has done a lot for me. To just kind of stay humble, stay hungry, and learn.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been trying to get you in the studio for a long time for our Friday Full Access, because I think there's so much to be spoken to you about, just from the evolution of yourself as an artist, your sort of constant schooling and being a student of the business of music, your love for the arts beyond just music. I've seen you and the wife have quite the impressive, let me put it, I wanted to use a more colloquial term, the impressive art collection. And so there's a lot to talk to you about, and I'm hoping that one day you do pop in so we can have those conversations. Talk to us about, this campaign, because it also speaks to what you are building with China Studios, and it's launched, if I'm not mistaken, it launches today, right?
It launches on Friday.
Okay.
Tomorrow we go live. We have a song titled The Originals Anthem. Everybody around me is going to eat, which is like hip-hop slang for, taking care of each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm looking forward to that. It's a new chapter. Here we go again. Every time I think I am done with the music, it yanks me back in. But, this is truly my purpose. And I can't wait for that. The TVC drops tomorrow. And I think, hip-hop was quiet for a little while, and this is an exciting time for hip-hop. I can safely say it's back.
Okay.
In full motion, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we look forward to it, and we'll try and make sure to get you here physically for a longer conversation one of these weeks, so we can just unpack everything and all the layers that comprise Kuli China. Thank you so much for the time. So Friday is when this exciting new campaign that features Kuli China alongside some new artists hits our screens, and we can't wait to see actually how he he's passing along the baton to the next generation. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. We're going to take a quick pause and then we'll be right back and get into road safety. Of course, it's raining outside. The heavy rains, they're causing quite a bit of havoc all over the country. And so we thought it only but prudent that we have that conversation today with the Motor Industry Workshop Association, looking at, road safety issues, and of course, just reminders of how we should be conducting ourselves as we get full on into this rainy season.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
All right, let's talk TV licenses. So did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about the legalities of it all? It also helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. And that means more epic dramas, exciting sports, and news that keeps you informed. So when was the last time you checked yours? Visit www.tvlice, that's tvlic.co.za, and make sure that you're up to date. After all, it's your screen and your stories. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So we've been hit with heavy rain in Gauteng, and I know KZN is also experiencing some consistent heavy rain, and flooding continues to impact some of the provinces in the country. And road safety has become quite the major concern, because I don't know what happens the minute the roads get wet and it starts raining. Suddenly we all forget our K53 and things just go awry on the streets. And so the Motor Industry Workshop Association, which is an association of the retail motor industry organizations, actually urging motorists to take extra precaution, and we thought we'd catch up with them today. How are you doing, Devalt? We're talking to Devalt Runt, who's the chairman of the Motor Industry Workshop Association.
I think I'm doing very well on my side. Like you said, I'm from the Free State, and we're also experiencing some rain the last couple of days. So yes, the topic is quite hot.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, Devalt. What happens to us as motorists when it gets rainy? Suddenly, we throw all kind of reason and caution out the window, and this becomes the time for us to start wanting to test our cars' capacities and capabilities.
Yeah, I don't know. If you ever find yourself in a position where you're driving in the rain, you get quite frustrated. But actually, you shouldn't throw caution to the wind, because driving in the rain is quite dangerous, and it ups the risk for accidents and so forth.
Yeah. And it absolutely does up the risks. And let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about some of those essential safety tips for driving in wet conditions. Where do we begin, firstly? Before we even hit the road, before you've reversed your car out the garage, I presume that the starting point is checking some things on your car first, or knowing some things about your car.
Yes, sure. First of all, you need to know if your car's, proper roadworthy, in a good condition. And then I'd start off by checking, your windscreen wipers. That is essential. Even your windscreen, so it's clear and clean. And then also, when it's raining, it's always a good thing to use your headlights. So make sure that your lights are all in good, proper working condition.
When you talk about headlights, I was driving on the N1 South yesterday, and we've had consistent rain like you guys, and there's that thing that happens on the highway, and I don't know what it's called by motoring terms, when sort of the spray from every single car creates like a fog on the road and you can't see, because there's so many cars on the highway and everyone's sort of spraying the residual wetness as they drive. I was quite interested in noting that almost everybody on the highway did not have their hazards on, and yet you could not see further than the one car in front of you because it was cloudy, it was dark, and that spray from each car was causing an obstruction, a visual obstruction.
Yeah, you're quite correct in saying that it doesn't even need to rain. It's the spray is also dangerous. So what I would suggest is obviously, putting on your headlights. If it's very bad, using your hazards as well. And then, increase your following distance. Slow down. And because you're braking, the procedure for braking is very shorter than when the roads are dry. So I would suggest the stuff that I mentioned, and obviously reducing your speed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What is hydroplanning?
So what happens is when you hit on the road, you'll hit a puddle of water, or maybe a bigger puddle of water, and the water would go in between the tires and the road. And when you want to increase your speed by braking and braking too hard, the car would start slipping, and instead of slowing down, it'll speed up. So it's very important to look out for puddles in the road, and lots of water, and also when your tires are worn, it's more likely to hydroplane than when it's in a good condition as well.
I see. Okay, so the top suggestions there would be what? Maintaining your speed limits, maintaining a good sort of braking distance.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple. So slow down and increase your following distance. Use your headlights appropriately. Avoid sudden braking and sharp turns. Watch out for puddles, as we just mentioned. Check your tires so it's in a good condition, and obviously keep your windscreen wipers in good condition.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit as well about, we see the visuals when, our cities get flooded out, and you see the visuals of cars suddenly becoming boats on the road, and in the most dire of circumstances where there's loss to life or some serious injury. Let's talk about crossing floodways, because that's something I think a lot of us take quite haphazardly. You kind of gauge it by your eye and you go, I think I could make it.
Yeah, sure. But the rule of thumb actually should be is to avoid trying to cross, flooded roads. First of all, you don't know the depth of the water and the force of the water. And then, you most likely, even if it's not too deep, when you hit the water spray would go up into the engine compartment and could cause the engine to fail. It'll cause the engine to die, and you'll sit there in dire straits, and then you have a problem. Because even like we mentioned, is even 30 centimeters of flood water can move a small car, and it could be very dangerous.
Okay, so let's just avoid no eyeballing there. Avoid it wherever humanly possible for you to take an alternative route. Especially, I would figure, especially if you don't drive that route very often, and you kind of don't know actually the lay of the land. You have no idea. When you see that standing body of water or whatever it is, I don't know if I would risk it.
Yeah, and people do make that mistake, and once they're in there, it's very difficult to reverse out of it, or change a situation. But also, when you get into that situation by default, I think you shouldn't worry too much about the car. Try not to panic. Get out of the car. Be safe, leave the car. It's easier to replace the car than to replace the person.
Absolutely. Dewald Trant, thank you so much for the time. And Dewald is the chairman of the Motor Industry Workshop Association. Hopefully you got some good, sensible reminders as to how we should all be conducting ourselves on these slippery, wet roads out there. I mean, my rule of thumb is rather you be late rather you have the boss shouting at you because you were late, rather you be late for that meeting or have to reschedule it again, than to be trying to dip and do at 160, 180. There are people even driving at 200 in these wet roads, and I just don't get it at all. We're going to take the top of the hour news right now, and just a reminder that Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater, and you can simply SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Top stories. The SAWA AfriForum to head to the US to save AGOA, and 6 people killed in KZN mudslides. Good afternoon, I'm Kolofelo Defo. AfriForum says it will be visiting the US soon on what it describes as a mission to salvage the African Growth and Opportunity Act. This is according to the Afrikaner Nationalist Group CEO Kali Kriel. Kriel's comments follow the issuing of an executive order by US President Donald Trump withdrawing financial aid for South Africa based on misinformation that wide-owned land is being grabbed by government. Kriel says the US cancelling AGOA will hurt all citizens.
We need to speak to the US in the interest of people in this country, and it is AGOA and PEPFAR. We know PEPFAR assists people with HIV/AIDS. We know AGOA, and what the US says in AGOA, if you're going to abuse human rights, if you're not going to respect property rights, and you're going to act against the interests of the US, you're going to lose that. So our effort is to save AGOA by saying to the US, tell South Africa they are contravening this.
The number of people killed in mudslides in KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 6. This is according to the Provincial Department of Cooperative Governance. KZN MEC for Cooperative Governance, Thulasizo Buthelezi, says disaster teams are on the ground assisting affected communities following heavy overnight rains across the province. The department also confirmed that there is a child missing. The hardest hit areas are mostly south of the province, where several infrastructure collapsed and flooded roads have been reported. Residents have been urged to heed to weather warnings and exercise caution during inclement weather. The DA's Gauteng leader, Solim Simanga, has lashed out at Premier Panyaza Lesufi, saying Lesufi continues to fail residents with empty promises and a lack of service delivery. Simanga was speaking this morning during a press conference which the DA in Gauteng has termed the True State of the Province Address, TISOPA. The TISOPA was aimed at exposing the alleged lies Lesufi has been telling residents since he took over the reins in Gauteng. Simanga says Lesufi has failed to deliver on almost every promise he made.
Lesufi has excelled, making mainly arrogant, broken promises, and has been at the center of denialism. His administration does not appear to be prepared and to have solutions for the major challenges that Gauteng faces, such as the severe water crisis and the overcrowded at schools, and we'll talk a little more about that, and the hospitals that are all not able to provide the necessary services that it's supposed to be providing to the residents and to the people of Gauteng.
The Kimberley Magistrates Court has set aside 3 days in April for the trial of a driver who allegedly killed 3 people in a crash last year in June. Colin Mhlanga, who was also found to be illegally in the country, knocked down a 16-year-old boy with his bakkie. When he tried to flee the scene, he then crashed into the back of a minibus taxi, killing passengers Michaela Boyson and Cavino Matthews. He faces charges of murder and contravening the Immigration Act and driving under the influence of alcohol. Michaela Boyson's father, Kenneth Boyson, says they welcome the charges against the accused.
So it's a big relief, and because at the ultimate end, he should have foreseen when he bumped the first boy, he should have stopped, because the one witness said to him, who was with him in the bakkie, you need to stop, and he pursued to drive, and at the ultimate end I would have been very unhappy with the state itself at large. In my view, with the murder, that is what he deserved. He murdered our kids.
And finally, researchers in Chile have developed a way of capturing large quantities of water from fog with potential benefits for dry cities across the world. The BBC's Victoria Gill has the details.
In the slums of Alto Hospicio in northern Chile, people rely on lorries to deliver drinking water. But scientists say a secure, clean water supply could be provided by collecting the fog that sweeps over the city from the Pacific. Fog water harvesting involves hanging a fine mesh between poles so moisture-laden clouds pass through and form droplets that can be collected. The researchers worked out that in Alto Hospicio, 17,000 square metres of mesh erected in foggy hotspots around the city could provide enough drinking water for all of its urban slums.
Recapping the top story, the SAWA AfriForum says it will be visiting the U.S. soon on what it describes as a mission to salvage the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. Headlines at 2:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Tefo.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. And you can get a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. So 52-year-old Sipho loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance that's made for older cars. For his 2007 Hyundai Tucson, he only pays 314 rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Top this up with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars that are older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. Simply SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP, and T's and C's do apply.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust Outsurance.
Switching to Outsurance has definitely saved me money, 2,107 rands per month. I would recommend Outsurance to all business owners because they will definitely save money. With Outsurance, you always get something out.
For your business insurance, contact Outsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, racing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand and enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank personal loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
into the sky, I see pictures of your face. Fly up above, fly up above, fly up above, and hey, seems like the twinkles high up in the clouds soon be falling away. I can feel your touch as you dance when the wind begins to sway. I am with you once again. I can hear how the birds begin to sing high in the trees. I can hear as you call my name. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Soon the rain will fall down on me. Soon we will meet again. Soon the rain will fall down on me, and I will see you again. Soon the rain will fall down on me. We will be once again. Soon the rain will fall down on me. Gentle rain, won't you fall my way? Hey, as I look up into the sky, I see a smile upon your face. High up above, high up above, high up above, and hey, sometimes I think of the days gone by and say, love has taken your place. I can feel your touch as you dance when the wind begins to sway. I am with you once again. I can hear how the birds begin to sing high in the trees. I can hear as you call my name. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Hey, as I look up into the sky, I see pictures of your face. Fly up above, fly up above, fly up above, and hey, seems like the twinkles high up in the clouds soon be falling away. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Feels like it's gonna rain. Feels like my pain's gone away. Feels like food to my soul. Rain,
Wanda Baloy, we caught up with her a few Fridays ago on the show. Gentle Rain, she's launched a new apparel line. If you go onto her social media platforms, she tends to post a lot of what she's making. So now your support can extend beyond just the music, and you can get a piece of Wanda Baloy in your closet as well. It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversations that move the nation. And we'll continue with this conversation now, coming at it from a different perspective. The Gauteng Liquor Board has suspended Zanzu, that's the nightclub in Pretoria, has suspended their operating license, and it says this is due to the ongoing criminal investigations. Of course, we saw earlier in the week the country was quite up in arms over those viral videos showing 5 young men being physically and sexually abused by the bouncers at Zanzu nightclub. Now, allegedly, what we understand so far is that the punishment was for not paying the bill, whilst a statement was released by the owners of Zanzu saying that the young boys were actually caught stealing. Well, okay, that's not the conversation today. It's neither here nor there as to what preceded those really that heinous reaction and response to the young men. We thought, let's have a look at the legalities around this, because it's Thursday after 2:00. We tend to have legal conversations. We thought, let's have a look at what the Gauteng Liquor Board is saying about this, and what do liquor laws in South Africa say about such situations. What should happen? What are the responsibilities and the regulations? And we're chatting to Cleo Budiba Lushaba, who is the Director of Client Relations for the Gauteng Liquor Board. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to you and the listeners.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Cleo. Let's talk firstly, maybe for those of us who don't know, because I actually don't know, what are the parameters, the areas of oversight and responsibility for the Gauteng Liquor Board?
Okay, there is quite a few. Some tend to overlap with the bylaws as well. But mainly, once one decides to apply for a liquor license, we usually recommend that they first go to their municipal office to get what we call a zoning certificate or consent use. Immediately after that, of course, they need to ensure that their business is registered. They have SARS compliance certificates, things like those. Of course, we also we recommend that they go to SAPS to ensure that they do not have any criminal records. So those are the 4 basic ones that I'll touch on. But maybe another one that is important is the fact that once they start the process of applying for a liquor license, they need to inform their neighbors. So our act would stipulate that they need to advertise in 2 or 3 local newspapers that have been read by the people within the area. There is no point in advertising in an Afrikaans newspaper, DBL, if you are going to be operating from Soweto, just to give an example. So those are the main requirements, but also we oversee things like what happens in your outlet inside and the close parameters within your outlet as well.
Okay, and interesting, because I also didn't even know about, criminal record, I guess, speaks to just the nature of the business that you'll be doing. But I didn't know that, for instance, you'd need to get a zoning certificate or a consent use clearance, or how it's termed. And that would speak to where your business is going to be, right? So you can't just put a nightclub someplace out of a zoning that is appropriate for it.
Absolutely, Bridget. Town planners know exactly the number of citizens within a suburb. They know the number of schools. They have an idea in terms of how they want the neighborhood to function. So it's important to touch base with the municipal office to get an idea. One good example in this one is people that would have empty spaces close by to them, and they start selling from their house or whatever, and they say, well, this space was empty, only to find the town planner had plans for a school or a shopping mall or a place of worship. So that's why it's important, among other reasons.
Okay. I want us to take a quick pause here for an ad break, and then we'll be back on the other side and continue our conversation with Cleo, representing the Gauteng Liquor Board.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Cleo Bodibe Lushaba joins us now, Director of Client Relations for the Gauteng Liquor Board, helping us understand for today's Legal Guide Corner just how exactly the Gauteng Liquor Board operates, and as well as some of the responsibilities and regulations around those who are in a business that requires their consent for operation. Let's also maybe, whilst we're on the topic of responsibilities, right, let's look at what are the responsibilities that come with holding a liquor license.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Bridget. Very important. According to our Act, we say we only award licenses to people that are fit and proper. Now, what does I mean, of course, it comes with being cleared from a criminal record, but also being a person that would be able to notice if something that shouldn't be happening is happening in your outlet. You should be able to observe. You should be protecting your patrons that are within the outlet itself. The way you serve drinks, the kind of drinks that you sell, you need to ensure that they are not illicit drinks. You know, a number of things. You know, I can touch on a number of things. But the main thing is the safety of the patrons inside the outlet. And of course, it goes without saying that the safety of the staff members as well. You cannot have a situation where your staff use the same ablution facilities as the patrons. You know, obviously that does pose problems. So there is quite a number of things, but those are the few that I can touch on right now.
Yeah. And what happens in the instance that, one finds that laws have been broken or responsibilities have not been upheld by said establishment or proprietor?
Absolutely. That's where we come in. If any of the laws are contravened, we use our own discretion in terms of what sort of penalty we issue out. Sometimes you find we walk in, the place is not kept well. Of course, there's a penalty for that, but it's not as severe as if we walked in or someone reported that there are children under 18 that are getting alcohol from that place, or, somebody that is selling to people that are already intoxicated. So our penalties will vary in terms of the contravention that has taken place. If I can just refer to Zenzu as an example, I mean, it is a topic of the week. There is no way your patrons inside the outlet would be treated the way they are being treated, and you would say, I didn't know, I wasn't aware, or it's none of my business. It is your responsibility, simply because we regard you as a fit and proper person. Otherwise, you shouldn't be having a liquor license to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a point that we harped on in conversation earlier this week around this, that ultimately the buck begins and ends with the owners and those in those management positions at such establishments. You can't shift it to someone else.
Absolutely, you cannot. The business exists because of you. You benefit from the proceeds of the business. So the minute I step into your outlet, inside your outlet, I take it I'm going to be safe. I cannot leave my cell phone somewhere and it disappears. I cannot have a situation where I'm being pickpocketed. So literally everything stops with you. Just to extend it a little bit, Bridget, even outside your outlet, there shouldn't be a situation where there is bottles like we find in certain outlets, bottles, cans, all those kind of things. It is your responsibility. In fact, though this is not in the Act, we recommend that liquor outlets should have security guards. Of course, the cleaner goes without saying. So the security guard would be watching my car, as an example, if I'm at a tavern. I'm giving an example. I need to know that I'm safe. If there's anything suspicious, of course, the car guards or whoever that's watching the place will inform the owner. The owner will then alert us. I need to know that as I'm getting into my car, I'm safe. They should alert us if there is anything that is happening that shouldn't be happening. One of the things that, out of interest, that we find happening, there would be, allow me to call them young girls, that would be in the outlet. And in some instances, they steal people's wallets, they steal people's phones, those kind of things. Sometimes even young boys, by the way. So those are the things that we expect you as the owner not to exonerate yourself from. We are at your outlet. You take full responsibility. Should I have a drink that is poisonous, that has expired, I don't want you to be telling me about the manufacturer. You should have checked before you bought the stock.
Yeah.
Before you serve me, need to check that glass. You're responsible of making sure the glass is clean. There's a number of things, but I'll just touch on a few as we go along.
Yeah. So there's some hardcore sort of regulations that liquor license holders need to adhere to, Cleo, and then there's some strong suggestions as well that are made by the board, like the example that you make of security being extended beyond the premises, but that speak to the business.
Absolutely. And of course, that security has to be paid for. Guess who needs to pay for the security? Yourself. You're the outlet owner. Just like any business really that you would get into. Let's take just an ordinary grocery store. The minute you are inside the grocery store, you expect that should anything happen, you'd be taken care of. The floor should be reasonably dry. If I were to fall, guess who I'm going to hold responsible? Not necessarily the cleaner, but you as the owner. It is very important to ensure that you trade responsibly, you treat people responsibly. I usually say the key, just in layman's term, is courtesy. What kind of treatment do you want to get when you are in an outlet or a grocery store or wherever it is? At least ensure that you are trading responsibly.
Yeah. How does the board, the liquor board, and I guess all the other necessary authorities, how do you ensure enforcement of compliance?
Yeah, very important. We have inspectors that do spot checks literally Monday to Monday. Of course, you and I will agree that at most outlets during the day, Monday to Friday, there wouldn't be a lot of patrons. So you find that they would be mainly going out in the evening. That's when there's activity. It's even busier over the weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, and the night before a public holiday. Those are the times that it gets busy. But that's what we do. But we also rely on people reporting such. We need to also be caring and alert neighbors, whether it's neighbor in a residential area or business kind of relation in terms of neighbor, and alert the Gauteng Liquor Board that I'm noticing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's this kind of activity that I'm suspicious of. Some of these, just by the way, Bridget, we don't necessarily regulate as the Gauteng Liquor Board. We mainly regulate the Gauteng Liquor Act, but we work with SAPS as an example. We work with other law enforcement agents that are able to come through and be able to assist and enforce together with us where we feel that our expertise are limited. Let's take, for instance, the illicit alcohol. We're not necessarily trained in terms of checking the legitimacy and the authenticity of a bottle of whatever alcohol. But there are people that are trained that would come in. Sometimes, if needs be, they even go out, take the alcohol for testing and so on. So it is very important to ensure that people do comply with all laws. I don't know how much time we have, but let me add this one as well. It might be irrelevant in as far as us as the Gauteng Liquor Board is concerned, but it's part of the bylaws. The noise level should not exceed certain decibels. Your outlet, you cannot be selling alcohol without selling food. So that goes without saying that your kitchen should be kept according to the rules and regulations. There must be a fire extinguisher, those kind of things. Yes, they have nothing to do with the Gauteng Liquor Board. However, as we step in and we notice the fire extinguisher isn't there or it isn't working or whatever, we have a responsibility as well to alert the necessary regulators the area.
We've literally run out of time, Cleo, but I just want to sneak this in as we wrap up the conversation. So I know that the Liquor Board has suspended Zanzu's operating license with immediate effect. What ultimately led to that?
It was mainly the irresponsible trading. Patrons were not safe. The neighbors, the surrounding people were complaining about some of the things. And as I said earlier on in one of the examples, some of these are not necessarily in the Gauteng Liquor Act, but they are part of the bylaws. But what really we found ourselves condemning the most is the human rights issue. There is no way people at this day and age would still be treated in that way. Some of the violence that we saw, some of the harassment that we saw, it was just uncalled for. And we couldn't put a parameter and say, this is our boundary, this is where it ends. At the end of the day, this is a liquor outlet where this is happening. We issued the license to this to this outlet owner, so we need to ensure that we take responsibility in as far as that is concerned.
Yeah, if possible, short answer. As an establishment owner, your ID is attached to licenses that you get. Are there situations and circumstances that warrant that ID be stricken and you never again are able to get an operating license?
We haven't gotten anything like that so far, but I cannot rule that out. Mind you, just to add on what you've just said, Bridget, I know we have issues with time. Also, it has to be a South African ID, unless, of course, otherwise you've gotten the citizenship. So I just thought I'd add that in. So far, the privilege of selling alcohol and obtaining a liquor license is only for the South Africans. Of course, there are people that acquire citizenship through other means in terms of the law. I mean, I'm talking legally as well. So yes, we'd consider those, but this is a privilege for just South Africans. But yes, at some point, for instance, in this instance, after the investigation and the hearing and all of those things that are going to follow, should we realize that there's something even worse that has taken place, there is no harm in revoking the license and ensuring that the person is never, in Gauteng at least, or in South Africa, is never able to trade with alcohol any longer.
Awesome. Cleo Budibe Lushaba, thank you so much for the time. Director of Client Relations for the Gauteng Liquor Board. And of course, Khulufela, apologies for making you run late with the headline news.
In the headlines this hour, the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Minister has supported a call by other European countries saying that Ukraine should be part of any peace talks aimed at ending the war in Kiev. Russia and US officials met on Tuesday for peace talks on the war in Ukraine. However, Ukraine was not invited. AfriForum says it will be visiting the U.S. soon on what it describes as a mission to salvage their AGOA. And lawyers for South Korea's suspended president have told his trial for alleged insurrection that he's the victim of an illegal investigation. Details at 3.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
And then, how? SK, where are you going with that stuff?
My dog. I'm going whale watching. New hobby, you see. Finally going out to explore the world. Giri levels, Dwana.
I see the life jacket, but I don't know how an inflatable boat, megaphone, and a fishing rod fits into all of this.
How else am I going to get to the whales, bongs? I need the boat. The megaphone is to do my whale calls, and the fishing rod, it's called ambiance. Ambiance. If you don't get it, forget about it.
Okay, but SK, you know there aren't any whales here in Germiston Lake.
Ooh, Shem, Mr. Know-it-all. Whales live in the water, and Germiston Lake has water.
Hey, sure, Ntwana, go whale watching in Germiston Lake. Me! I'll tune into Whale with Steve Buckshall, Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by Side.
Hello and welcome to Side by Side. Parenting is a journey filled with challenges and joys, and we're here to walk the journey with you, providing expert advice, practical tips, and plenty of encouragement along the way. Proudly brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Today we're talking about something that many parents face: what to do when your child is sick with diarrhea. We heard from Kanya on our drama episode yesterday, who basically shared her concerns and experiences when little Amanda had diarrhea. It's a situation that can be worrying, but with the right knowledge, you can handle it confidently. Now, to help us understand how to manage and treat diarrhea in children, we're joined by Dr. Bapela, a pediatrician from the Gauteng Department of Health. She will share practical tips and help you feel prepared for situations like this. Dr. Bapela, thank you for joining us today and good afternoon. What are the primary factors contributing to diarrhea in children, and what measures can be taken to prevent it?
Good afternoon to the listeners. Diarrhea in children can be caused by various factors, including infections, which are mainly bacterial infections like Salmonella, viral infections like rotavirus. Other parasitic infections like Giardia are common causes of diarrhea. Food intolerance like lactose intolerance and other food intolerance can lead to diarrhea. Medications, certain medications such as antibiotics can disrupt the balance of gut bacteria and cause diarrhea. Contaminated food and water. Consuming contaminated food or water can result in diarrhea. Prevention strategies for diarrhea include hand hygiene. Always wash your hands and your child's hands with soap and water before preparing food, before eating, and after using the toilet and changing nappies. Providing safe and clean drinking water can prevent diarrhea. Proper food handling, ensuring food is cooked thoroughly and stored safely. Breastfeeding. Breast milk provides antibodies that help protect against infections. Vaccination. Vaccinating against rotavirus and other vaccine-preventable diseases can also help prevent diarrhea in your child.
So, what symptoms are related to diarrhea in children?
Children with diarrhea may present with the following symptoms: loose watery stools, abdominal pain or tummy pain, vomiting, fever or high temperature, loss of appetite. Depending on the cause of the diarrhea, the symptoms may vary. Children with diarrhea can easily become dehydrated, and dehydration can be serious and even fatal. Babies or small children are particularly vulnerable to be dehydrated when they have diarrhea. They can become unwell very quickly. It's important to recognize if your child is dehydrated. The signs of dehydration include dry mouth, tongue, and lips, sunken eyes, a child being irritable, shedding fewer tears when crying, and fewer wet nappies or wheeze than usual. And the symptoms and danger signs of severe dehydration include the child not being able to drink or drink poorly, the child being lethargic, making no urine or only reduced amount of urine, very sunken eyes, very sunken fontanelle in a baby, cold, pale or blotchy skin, and fast breathing. Severe dehydration is a medical emergency and can be fatal. Get medical help for your child immediately if there are signs of severe dehydration.
And when should I take my child to seek urgent care?
Take your child to a health facility immediately if your child has diarrhea and any of the following: there's blood in the or mucus in the stools, the child has severe abdominal pain, has green vomiting or keeps vomiting, the child has a high fever above 38.5 degrees, shows signs of severe dehydration, as we mentioned above with the severe dehydration. The child is tired or drowsy or is not getting any better after rehydration at home or cannot take in any fluids.
And Dr. Bapela, what steps should parents follow to ensure their children receive proper care and recover effectively at home when experiencing diarrhea?
And when a child has diarrhea, it's crucial to manage the symptoms and prevent dehydration. So parents should do the following immediately when the child has diarrhea. The child has to be kept rehydrated. Oral rehydration solution can be used to replace lost fluids and electrolytes. And if the child is breastfeeding, continue breastfeeding or formula feeding. And for infants, avoid giving sugary drinks, fruit juices, or carbonated beverages. Instead, offer small, frequent sips of oral rehydration or sugar salt solution and appropriate fluids. For older children, continue offering their usual diet, including easily digestible food like rice, banana, and toast. And monitor the child for dehydration. So watch for signs of dehydration such as dry mouth, decreased urine output, sunken eyes, and lethargy, and seek medical attention if these signs are present. And continue giving extra fluids until the diarrhea stops. And to make the sugar salt solution at home, you will boil 1 liter of water, 8 level teaspoon sugar plus half teaspoon of salt, and then you cool the solution, and then you will give your child as rehydration solution at home before you take the child to the health facility. If you have oral rehydration solution sachet, it mixed with clean water and administered to the child to correct dehydration. So if the child is up to 2 years, you give 50 to 100 ml after each loose stool. If the child is 2 years and above, you give 100 to 200 ml after each loose stool. Avoid certain medications. So do not give antidiarrheal medications to children without consulting a healthcare provider. Maintain good hygiene practices to prevent the spread of infection within the household.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bapela, for joining us today. Any last message that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I would like the caregivers to recognize if a child has diarrhea and start rehydration earlier so that by the time the child goes to the health facility, the child is already rehydrated, because dehydration is the cause of all the complications from diarrheal illnesses. Thank you to the listeners for listening to this educational talk, and let's make sure that our children remain safe. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA, and look out for more great content. Join us again, same time next week, when we'll be talking about mom's mental health.
Side by Side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than staring into your fridge, convinced there's nothing to eat, with hopes that something new magically appears. Only to end up ordering the same meal you had yesterday. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The thirst to play the beautiful game is too high in the Banyana camp as they get ready to face Lesotho this weekend. Desiree Ellis Girls will be playing their first match of 2020 against Southern African neighbors in an international friendly at Tsakane Stadium. There will be no love shared amongst neighbors on the field of play. Show your love for Banyana. Tune in live to SABC 1 and your favorite SABC radio station this Sunday at 3 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
If they don't have approval, what do you then do about it?
There's going to be a lot of, fines that are there as well. You can be arrested for damage to the infrastructure. Damaging the infrastructure of, Gautrain is very serious. It's actually close to treason because, what if, you would have done a lot of disaster, which the train derails and everything. So it's quite very serious. Many people that have been arrested, we've taken others that they're actually going to be going into court. And what we even went to do, we've even confiscated the drilling machines from the company.
So Dr. Mqini Twaku, who's the MMC for Community Safety in the city of Joburg.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, our final conversation now. We're looking at auditing our various insurance policies, the likes of life insurance, etc., and ensuring that also beneficiary nominations are all up to date. So we're catching up with a certified financial planner, Gerald Mwandiambera. How are you doing this afternoon, Gerald?
I'm great, Bridget, and good afternoon to all your listeners.
Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it so very much. And we know that obviously this is your area of professional expertise. And we want to get all of these things sort of done in the first quarter of the year, right? When it comes to things like reviewing and updating our various policies, including life insurance. Can I just admit off the bat that I probably have not looked at my life insurance in the last 4 years?
Well, look, I think you're not the only one. I think many listeners are in the same position where, from the day they took it out, they've never looked at it, but it goes off the bank account every month, and they assume that everything is in order. But it is important to review your policies at least once a year. In terms of the PHASE Act and best practice, your financial advisor or planner is supposed to give you a call once a year to just simply say, let's go through it. So it's sad that you haven't looked at it in 4 years, because it also could mean that no one has called you in 4 years since, or you keep canceling the appointment when they say, let's meet. But in terms of best practice, your financial planning professional is supposed to sit with you once a year to do an annual review where you basically discuss any changes in your personal circumstances, which would affect your life policies or generally all your financial contracts. And life events could be birth of children, death of family, marriage, divorce. And obviously, if you do not tend to these changes, what could happen is that in the unlikely event of you passing, or you could have a scenario where you've got beneficiaries who are outdated and no longer relevant in your life, but because the document is a legal contract, they will get paid out.
Yeah. Listen, I fully take the blame here, Gerald. It's fully me. That phone call and that email and that WhatsApp message is sent periodically, and every time I go, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. And it never happens. But I get the feeling that there's a lot of us who also function from that, I'll get back to you, and it never really happens. Why update all these things? As you've alluded, policies are legally binding documents, and anything can happen at any time. And so those should reflect the most current and up-to-date sort of circumstances of our life at that time.
Definitely. And also there's the viewpoint that, remember, there's inflation and cost of living. So when you took out that policy, what you thought was a relevant amount in terms of what would cover your debt, as well as any inheritance you'd like to pass on to those who are remaining, may no longer be relevant. You need to look at that document. Sometimes from an affordability perspective, you said you didn't want it to be inflation linked because you wanted to pay a lower premium, which means that your cover amount is not actually evolving in line with inflation, which means that in 10, 15 years' time, the amount which was a great amount 15 years ago is no longer worth it. So it's important to have those kinds of conversations. You need to always review. Also, there's an opportunity and potential that the product and the markets have changed, where there might be a more suitable solution to cover your life events than there was before, and that solution could possibly give you greater benefit, or even give you greater benefit in terms of affordability. So it's important to shop around, and every year just make sure that what you have is really what you want. And I understand a lot of people are busy, and talking death is not always the most comfortable topic, but it's important that you review your life policies, and more importantly, review your will.
Yeah.
Every year, because it's a legal document, as you said, that's binding. And no matter how life may have changed, if you haven't updated that document, whatever is recorded will be what instructions will be carried out in terms of nominated beneficiaries, especially in the case of a life policy.
Absolutely. Let's talk a bit as well about, the essentials, because a lot of people say that they are, we grew up with the generation of our moms who took every policy under the sun. Because back then there was the famous insurer, the blue one, and everybody had my cameraman who's of that generation is nodding profusely. So they had every kind of insurance, and they were overly burdened. And you'd find people would, insurances would lapse, and there goes all of your premiums and everything else. What should essentially, if someone had to come to you and say, Gerald, what are the bare minimum basics that at least I should have in place by way of insurance and policy?
Look, the bare minimum is to have a comprehensive life policy, which would normally have a funeral component. So it means that in the event of your death, it will cover the costs regarding the event itself, and maybe a tombstone. And occasionally they will have a few added extras like groceries or cell phones, so that people can call when you do pass on the message. You need to have a cover amount which covers your debt at the point of death, so that if you were to die today, all your debts could be settled. And also, it should also be an...
We lost connection with Gerald. We're going to try and get him back in just a moment. As we talk insurance, we're auditing. This is the time of the year for you to be able to audit all of your insurance policies. What do you have on hand? What does it cover? And of course, as you said, as Gerald has reminded us, when was the last time you updated your beneficiaries' nominations just to ensure that everything is still up to date and reflecting your current state of being? A lot of people who don't change these things find themselves getting, they divorced and then they pass on and then suddenly the ex is inheriting everything, and that's not what you wanted. They tell me we've got Gerald back on the line. I don't know, we got disconnected there, but we were talking, so comprehensive life cover, which covers everything. You ran us through that, and then what else?
And then also you want to have a policy which looks at other life events which happen, but not as frequently. I mean, you're guaranteed to die. That's why it's called a life assurance policy. But there's also a disability component. You need to cover disability. And what's more and more prevalent in our society today, maybe because of our diets and our lifestyles, a component which covers the so-called dread diseases. And dread diseases would be things like cancer, diabetes, cardiac arrest, so that at least should one of those events impact on you, you would be covered. So typically speaking, with disability, that policy would treat you as no longer, I'm being really crude, but as though you've died.
Yeah.
and essentially pay out so that you have a replacement income component to pay off debts, etc., because you might not be able to work again. And obviously the dread diseases would cover the costs of potential hospitalization, hospice care, or even, conversions and amendments to your home environment to suit your disability, even buy you a car, which allows you to work with your disability. So these are things which we often overlook, that it's simply not just about, covering your debt and your children. It's also about you, should you be disabled or have an illness which will impair your ability to earn an income.
Yeah. And some of the common mistakes perhaps that we make as clients?
Well, the most common mistake is ignoring your annual review. That's the first common mistake. Other common mistakes is simply, not sitting down and actually going and working through the numbers. A lot of people select an insurance policy based on affordability and not necessarily the requirement. And obviously, a lot of your financial planning professional will tell you it's not enough, but trust and do believe when the event happens, you conveniently have amnesia. So do not, rather go and pay what is required in terms of the premium cover for your best scenario, so that at least over time that premium actually reduces. Another mistake you mentioned is letting a policy to lapse. Because remember, when you take out a life policy, you go through a process called underwriting, which is where they measure your risk versus your lifestyle and health. And typically speaking, when we take out our first policy, we are young, healthy, and life is, looking good. And should you let that policy lapse and they have to underwrite you and do that process again in 10, 15 years later, you're not as healthy, you're not as light as you were, and you might have taken up smoking and other habits which would greatly, impact on your premium. So letting a policy lapse means that the next time you get underwritten, the premium will definitely be much higher. And the mere fact that you've allowed your first policy to lapse would also mean potentially that you're also at greater risk to the company, because remember that your policyholder funds are pulled together with other people, so we all cover each other, and if there are people who suddenly disappear, it impacts on the rest of the group.
Okay. Listen, I've never heard it explained like that before, and I think it makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for the advice, and I think a lot of folks will definitely be sitting down this weekend and just assessing the state of their respective insurance policies. I promise I'm going to call back my broker and get my assessment done for 2025. That was Gerald Mwadimbera, who is a certified financial planner and the acting CEO of the South African Savings Institute. That is us for this afternoon. Ashraf is coming through for the rest of the day. Lots of conversation to be had today, no doubt. I'm sure picking up on some of the events, those events that transpired yesterday in Cape Town, but also dipping into the G20 summit that is currently underway in Johannesburg today. And if you're on the road and you happen to be sort of traveling to and from work and home and running your errands, if it's raining, please do heed the advice of our previous guest, Devalt, in as far as some road safety tips are concerned. From me and my team, we'll see you tomorrow. Khulufelo is standing by with the news. Inshallah, God willing, we'll do it again.